Well, listen, Florida is always in the news for its politics and the policies and the people running it. So I thought you would be a great guest. And I'll be honest, it's been hard to get a lot of Democrats on. We do have a lot of people on the other side that often like to come on, pitch to come on, want to come on. And I don't hear from a lot of Democrats that want to come on. So I love that I have you and I get to hear the message from you guys and your party. But let's start with how you got into politics. You've had a really amazing arc of a career. And I want to hear from you how you got into it because you've done so many things. Oh, oh, I got you back now. George, is
Sorry, my
she
internet's
frozen?
a little bit unstable. Yeah.
Yeah, we're back now.
We're back. Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
So how I got into politics, my like train is a little bit not straight. I got actually involved in politics first in growing up. My dad is a diehard Republican. My mom is a diehard Democrat. He is an attorney. My mom is a teacher.
Mhm.
And I kind of just fell into my youth group in high school, was vice president in my middle school, ran for president of my youth group, and really always had this just like passion inside of me to want to do good. In the Jewish faith, we call it tikkun olam, to heal the world. And even when I was 9 years old, asked my parents for my 10th birthday to take me to the White House. And so it's always kind of been in my DNA for some aspects. And I went to University of Florida, where I was got my undergrad, my master's, my law degree, where I was student body president my last year while in law school. And for
Mhm.
anybody who knows the University of Florida student government, it is a very old guard, old boys network, not a lot of female student body presidents. I was actually the third elected at the University of Florida. So old boy network that I kind of
Cool.
made my way through into the Florida Blue Key world. And so I always had this bug. And then I kind of graduated and practiced law, traditional law for like 8 years, everything from public defender's office to corporate litigation to foreclosure work. And I really miss the politics, the policy, the ability to move the needle on some of these issues that I saw on the private side. And so I, in 2018, decided in a time when we were going through a pink wave, a blue wave, and I was very involved at that time. I was a lobbyist, but at that time in the cannabis legalization world and took a run for in 2018 as Commissioner of Agriculture, jumping full feet in into the deep end, and here I am, 6.5 years later.
That is amazing. Was there a point when you realized people listened to you? I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people that want to get into politics or like it, but it's hard to be heard in that, big of a world.
Yeah. When I first was in the lobbying space, and I, after spending 8 years in traditional law, scrubbed my resume and said, again, I miss politics and decided to go into government consulting and did that for roughly 10 years. And as a lobbyist, it depends on your clients. It depends on which firm you've joined. And what I found as a female was even more difficult,
Mm.
that it was harder to get the doors opened, harder to be listened to. But having that 8 years of being an attorney, of actually being in the courtroom, of actually practicing law, gave me a little bit of credibility when I went in. I understood what the issues were, I understood what impact legislation would actually have on the state of affairs for my client or others. And so I got into a point, and then I fell into this cannabis world in 2015, where I spent a lot of time, both from a practical experience regarding being a past public defender, so from the criminal justice perspective, representing private clients, now the commercialization and the economic impacts. And so it gave me an opportunity to really find a lane that I had credibility in, that I had expertise in, and was able to put together issues that people seem to gravitate towards, and forming coalitions that weren't just Democratic lanes, Republican lanes, independent lanes. It is one of those last, cannabis is one of those last crossover issues that is
Mm.
more libertarian than anything else. So I got my lane and got my credibility from, issue specific stuff.
Oh, amazing. Okay, most people don't know what the agriculture commissioner actually does. When I heard that, I was like, you know what? I always hear that term or that role. And what the hell? What did you do?
Rachel, when I ran in 2018, that was one of the issues that I had to address more than anything else, because to your point, people don't know, especially in the Democratic lanes, we're not as much invested into agriculture. So
Yeah.
explaining to South Florida why the Commissioner of Agriculture position mattered was half of the battle when I ran in 2018. And then a female who had never been elected, not only in Florida, but the entire South, how I would have been able to have been qualified for this position to begin with. And
Yeah.
so, first of all, the position is Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services. It's a pretty wide-ranging cabinet
By
position.
the way, it
Um,
sounds very intimidating and very smart. Don't you
yes,
think? So it sounds
yeah,
like a really big
absolutely.
job.
It is. We were the second largest cabinet outside of the governor's office. We have 19 divisions. Everything from your traditional citrus to aquaculture to farming to fruits and vegetables to sugar cane to timber to ranches. We got 46,000 working farms and ranches in the state of Florida. But the
Yeah.
other parts that really got people excited and engaged in this position was the consumer side of this. This was right after Parkland, when, having at that time lived in Broward County, guns and more regulations behind firearms was hot topic issues. Well, the Commissioner of Agriculture oversaw the concealed weapons program, and so
Mm.
gave me again a lane to get people educated of what the commissioner does. Then it's all the other consumer stuff. It is making sure, that's why you see our little sticker on the gas pumps, making sure that your gas is the correct, level number, 97 versus 93, 94, or 87, making sure that the weights and scales at your food stores are not ripping up off consumers. Same thing at airports, the weights and scales. We also oversaw all the feeding programs in our state, from the school programs to the summer feeding programs to all of the food banks. I created the hemp industry in the state of Florida. So that is a huge national topic right now. But after the 2018 Farm Bill passed, it was signed into law in 18 and 19 when I first was elected. That was the first piece of legislation that I pushed, was for legalization of hemp in the state of Florida, that we then saw. Oh, but we did everything from nonprofit organizations to truckers to, I mean, basically, if it didn't fall underneath the governor's office, it was under the Commissioner of Agriculture. And a member of the
Wow.
cabinet and clemency board and board of trustees for the state for land buying and selling. Pretty intense position that unfortunately most of Floridians don't know what it does and never seem to care about until the 2018 election.
Well, it sounds like it holds a huge weight. I mean, did you learn as you went along? Because it's not necessarily something you can study for and come up and know that that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time when I was running, making sure that before I went into a meeting, whether it was with the Cattlemen Association or the Fruits and Vegetable Association, like, I don't come from agriculture. I think that
Mm.
that's pretty obvious from my hearing of my background. But when I said to agriculture on the first few days of after I was elected, I said, look, I'm an attorney by trade. My job is to represent zealously my clients. Now, the agriculture industry, which is second largest economic driver for Florida, is my client, and my job is to advocate for you. So I spent a lot of time listening to those who've been in the agriculture industry for 4, 5, 6, 7 generations, of their needs, of their interests, hearing from the people on the ground. And then we spent a lot of time learning. I'm a policy wonk. And so I wanted to make sure that I was creating decisions that were in the best interest of everybody. I might have been elected as a Democrat, but I really truly believe that if you want to be a public servant, you got to take your party label aside when you're first elected and make sure that you're truly representing your entire constituency base, which is 22 million people of Florida.
Right, right. And speaking of Florida specifically, Florida's become a national symbol for conservative culture wars. Do you think the voters here are misunderstood?
I think that the problem in Florida is a couple of things. I think one is that we've had 30 years of one party control of our state. And
Mhm.
so all you are hearing is from one side of the conversation, where the Democrats have not done a great job of communicating, of listening, of making sure that our party platform is representative of the collective Democrat, Republican, Independent, which is now 1/3 of our state.
Mm.
And then when you have one party controlling a state for so long, it, lines get gerrymandered. So you have right now in our state 30 plus D seats. That's not how a state's supposed to be drawn. It is supposed to be more purple districts, so you get more voices and more hearing of what is going on. And so you have a Republican conservative legislature that truly doesn't reflect the vast majority of Floridians, because you don't have I'll give you an example. When 70% of Floridians did not want a 6-week abortion ban, we
Mhm.
still have one. And that is because we have such a gerrymandered legislature that is not providing for equal balance on policies like even abortion, like cannabis, like some of those issues that are really, hit hard hitting to everyday Floridians. There is a really hard way to get to your elected officials to do what's right for the vast majority of people.
Right. You brought up the abortion ban. You were arrested protesting the 6-week abortion ban. Did you think that that was something that was necessary? Was that the plan? What happened there?
That was not the plan. If for anybody who thinks otherwise, I continue to tell people that was not the plan. I had dinner that night with my fiance. That was not the plan of the evening.
Mm.
But I had known that there was going to be over the course of the week, there was what's called Occupy Tallahassee was coming to Tallahassee to protest the 6-week abortion ban. The intent was to sleep outside in tents and sleeping bags. The local government here in Florida, in Tallahassee, unfortunately, kept playing games of changing permits and locations and whatnot. I get the frantic call at Monday around probably at 4:30. Hey, chair, can you come down to City Hall? We are seeing, SWAT teams. And when I'm telling, you got maybe 30 women. We're not talking about mobs here. We are talking about a select group of people that are out there that are protesting. So I get there, have a nice conversation with law enforcement. We talk about the situation. I call it ridiculous that they're telling people to leave by 8 o'clock. Session is happening. People are constantly walking around. There's bars. There's no reason to kick people off of this little area outside of City Hall. So 7:45 comes, the minority leader in the Senate, Lauren Book, as well as some other senators and legislators come out. They put out a podium. I didn't even know that was happening. I get up to the podium. I'm the third speaker. I say my 2 cents, no script, no nothing. I turn around and I see on the other side of the barricades, our minority leader, as well as some of the other protesters sitting on the ground, sitting, no violence, no nothing, sitting, holding hands, singing, Lean on Me. And so I crossed over the barricade lines. I was like, well, there's no way that I'm going to, be okay with our minority leader who's in a dress and heels being arrested and sitting in this protest, and I don't join her. So I crossed over and started seeing her actually taking off her jewelry, giving it to her legislative affairs director. I start taking off mine. I do the same. My fiance calls and says, "Babe, where are we going for dinner?" And I said, "You may have to be meeting us at the at the jailhouse." He's like, "Okay, I'm glad it's you, not me this time." Um, and I connect him to Lauren's legislative affairs director, and now the rest is history.
So I've always wondered when you're arrested for protesting like that, what actually happens? Do you get put in a jail cell? Can you potentially stay
Yeah.
there more than 24 hours? What happens?
Yeah, so we get arrested and I felt so bad. It's 8:05. You've got these men in SWAT gear coming down and arresting 11 of us.
Right.
And the poor kid that was arresting me, he was shaking.
Oh,
And so I turned to him and I said, "Hey, I'm a past public defender. I'm an attorney, past member of the Florida cabinet. You're not going to have any issues here. I know that this is not what you want to be doing tonight. But it's going to be okay." And trying to soothe him through the situation. So
yeah.
they tend to take us to a parking lot, a parking garage, and they start asking us name, all of our ID stuff. And of course, none of us have anything on us. So one of the sergeants comes over to me and asks me my name. I say Nikki Fried. He says a, a criminal offense, false name to a police officer. excuse me? He goes, yeah, I'm fully aware of the law. I'm a past public defender. I'm an attorney. He goes, so you know the law. He's like, so you want to try this again? What's your name? And I said, Nikki Fried. And he again said, you do understand that it is a law, a crime. And I said, if you have a question, I said, Google my name. And so that ended that, but it was started becoming a little contentious. And then
Yeah.
they took 10 of us. So they were middle of a legislative session. So they kind of separated out Lauren to make sure that she could be arrested during session as the minority leader. She can. That happens to Republicans all the time for DUIs and other types of criminal issues in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
And so they took 10 of us down. Lauren came right afterwards. They then took Lauren and I kind of in first as quote unquote VIPs. Which is kind of insane. So they took the two of us in and they started to, do the typical check-in information. They said, have you ever been arrested before? I said, no, I'm normally on the other side of this conversation. So then we then went in and they took our fingerprints, took our mug shots. And because I'm a past PD, I have an exemption of not disclosing my location of my personal home for my own personal safety purposes. So
Mhm.
check that box. But the woman who was fingerprinting me leaned in and says, I voted for you, which is make it super awkward. And then Lauren and I were put in a separate kind of holding cell until the paperwork got, taken care of. We knew we were getting released on our own recognizance, and neither of us have any criminal history. There was no violence, there was no nothing. So we knew we were getting released. It was
Okay.
probably a few hours that we were in there. And
So you weren't scared.
no, we weren't scared. I
Okay.
mean, I knew that we were getting out. I had by the time we got into the jail, we had another, leader in the Senate who had already talked to the judge. My fiance's out there. So there was we're getting out. It's just a matter of how long.
I'm going to give this a timeout for
Froze
one
again.
second. Yeah, that's okay. I'm just waiting for your Wi-Fi to catch up for a sec. George,
I think I'm
does
back.
she, is that, can she end her sentence there?
If we could please just go back to the very beginning interaction with that officer. That way I could just splice it together. That way we don't miss
Sure.
that part. That was a good part.
Okay. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
All right, you got full bars
Yeah.
now.
So, as we're doing, getting okay. So, and I'm not even moving, so I don't. So, when we were getting the mug shots, and as the woman who's taking my fingerprints, she leans in and says, "I voted for you." So, making it super awkward, but funny, and just kind of the reality of the moment that we were kind of in. And then, but we were released about a couple hours afterwards. We kind of knew that we were going to get out in a relatively short period of time. Before we got in, I'd already seen one of our other state senators who had already talked to the judge and the state attorney. My fiance was out there. So we kind of knew that it was going to be, that we were going to get out, but it was just a matter of, how many hours that we're going to be behind bars.